How we doing, everybody, and welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. Hopefully everybody is having a great Friday, a great start to their Friday, or whenever you're catching on to us here on the show. Today, we have the weekend preview here. We have the Friday preview. We got the Bucks coming up this weekend here. We also have some Badger football, Badger basketball coming up tonight, Packers on Sunday. It's a loaded up weekend there for Wisconsin sports. If you're a fan of Marquette, Marquette plays, I believe, tonight too. They're going to have a game, if I'm not mistaken there. I don't remember, right? But I know they have a game this weekend. We'll go with that. Marquette has a game this weekend. Milwaukee's in action. So is Green Bay. So it's a loaded up weekend for Wisconsin sports. But with that, I am here today with Austin. Austin, how are we doing today?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. It is a great Friday to talk about some sports here. So right away, we're going to jump into the Bucks because the Bucks are going to have their second in-season tournament game. You know, it's kind of hard to keep track of these things. If you don't actually look at it, you just think it's another game on the schedule. It's just a random game, and then all of a sudden it's an in-season tournament. So Bucks in action, in-season tournament game, part of group play there. Looking to go 2-0 in the in-season tournament here so far. Hornets coming to this one 3-7 on the year. Not really off to the greatest start. Still young out there with the Hornets. They're still trying to work through the kinks here. So looking at this matchup here, Bucks are favored in this matchup. We figured as much. But the big thing that I'm looking at the Bucks right now and thinking is, okay, so the Bucks look good last game out against the Raptors there. No Giannis Antetokounmpo on the floor. We did have Dame, no Giannis. Now when we don't have Dame and we have Giannis, Giannis looks good. When we have them both, we don't have it. So, you know, it's kind of, is the chemistry bad with these two right now? It's not like it's flowing well with them on the court right now because, you know, we've won without Dame, with Giannis on the floor. We've won with Dame without Giannis on the floor, but we struggle with them both. So that it's really is a struggle right now for the Bucks. So hopefully the chemistry starts to work between those two moving forward. So in this game against the Hornets, I don't know. You got the stats pulled up over there?
I can pull them up right now.
He'll get the stats pulled up over there. But while he's pulling those up there, you know, I'm kind of looking at, you see a lot of people were calling for Adrian Griffin there to be fired. I mean, barely into this season here, and they're already calling for his head. And I thought that was quite interesting. I don't know if you can call it so soon on your first year head coach. We're, I don't even know, 9 games into the season here, 11 games into the season here for the Bucks. And they already are like, okay, let's get this guy out of town. And it's kind of baffling to me, you know, kind of giving up that early. I don't know. To me, seems like I was just talking, chemistry isn't really there yet. We haven't been able to put it all on the floor at the same time. And it just seems like it's one of those things where we might have to just wait a little bit here. Like we were talking the other day, 25, 30 games into the year, still the same issues. Okay, now we address it. But we're 11 games in. 11 games into the season. We haven't had Giannis and Dame out there consistently together. Middleton's been on that minute restriction. So it's kind of one of those things where we're going to have to go through the growing pains here between these three.
Yep. And to go with that, I mean, they're not playing a very good Charlotte Hornets team. 3-7. They did just beat a decent Toronto team. But like you said, Giannis wasn't there. Malik Beasley against them actually scored 30 points. So, I mean, you see a little bit from Malik Beasley there, which I think is another player who's still fairly inconsistent when it comes to how he's playing. I mean, he'll drop 30, and then what's he going to give us next game? Probably 10, hopefully. But they come in to play against a Charlotte Hornets team who's, like you said, 3-7, and to take a look at some of their stats here, not surprisingly, you have LaMelo Ball, who's leading the charge with them in points. He averages 22.2 points per game, and then next you got Terry Rozier, but he's only played 5 games, so I don't know if he's hurt or if those were the most recent 5 games. I'm not too quite sure on that. But then Gordon Hayward, who's still in the league, he's still kicking her with Charlotte. He's averaging 17.2, and then PJ Washington was 17.2. And then to round it off, a little bit there. Mark Williams with 14.4. But I mean, they're kind of young. I mean, I feel like they're relying a little bit on LaMelo Ball, who's relatively young, I'd say. I mean, he's only been in the league for a few years. Um, and there's just a lot of guys on this team besides, I mean, I know LaMelo Ball. I've heard of Terry Rozier and I've heard of Gordon Hayward, a little bit of PJ Washington. But besides that, they just have a lot of no names on their team that I've never really heard of before. So, I mean, hey, if the Bucks play like they did against Toronto, I mean, no doubt they should be able to blow these guys out. I mean, it seems like they did what we said they wanted to do. I mean, they got up 36-21 in the first quarter against them, and then I mean, they never gave that lead back. You know, they kind of just dominated, and that's what we said they had to do. That's what we wanted to see out of them when they were playing against Toronto, to see that dominance and then just never give it back. And I think against this weak Charlotte Hornets team, and it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. If Giannis plays, I don't really know if he's hurt or anything. I'm not quite sure, but it'll be interesting to see how, I mean, if Damian Lillard goes off again and Giannis isn't in the lineup, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Giannis comes back in the lineup and how their chemistry works out with that. But to stick to Charlotte, should be, I'd hope to say, an easy game for the Bucks, but then again, what do I know? I don't really know a whole lot, especially when it comes to the Bucks. It seems like they're always one way or another. They either do really good or they just play bad. So I don't really know, but Charlotte Hornets should be a dub for the second in-season game or in-season tournament game.
Yeah, should be a good matchup there with the Bucks and the Hornets, like you were saying. Getting them both back, if we see Giannis on the floor there along with Dame. I just want to see, you have a game like this where you play Charlotte. Like you were saying, should be an easy game. You want to see the chemistry start to work between these two and just slowly start to develop here so that, we get into the meat of the schedule there. Now you have these guys clicking on all cylinders. So should be a good matchup there for the Bucks there tonight. That'll be a 6:00 tip there from Charlotte. So a big matchup there in season tournament play for the Bucks, looking to go 2-0 in this early in-season tournament season here. But right now, we got to jump over into the Badgers because the Badgers will be in action tonight also. They're going to be on the Big Ten Plus for this one. Couldn't get national television, but I could see why. Right now, Badgers have been ugly as of late. Watching them play, Tennessee, I wouldn't call it ugly. They had some good moments in there. I thought they actually had a pretty good shot of winning that game. Kind of went stale at the end with the offense, and that led into that Providence game. That's where the big issue came, was that final couple minutes there against Tennessee really moved into that next matchup against Providence. So we saw an ugly game from the Badgers there against Providence. Offense could never get going there. Chucky didn't look great. Wall didn't look great. There wasn't really anybody on the floor that looked phenomenal. AJ Storr had 22, 7 for 20 from the floor in that game. So you can say what you want about that performance. Scored a lot, didn't shoot it well. Blackwell played well off the bench for the Badgers, but other than that, it was an ugly game against Providence. So now, same with the Bucks. Coming out against Robert Morris, we just want to see it all click. And when I say click, I don't mean I expect the Badgers to win this game going away. 20 points, whatever it is, I expect them to win this game going away. But in this game, I want to see the Badgers run an offense. I want to see something moving forward, something to build off of, because after this, you got Virginia coming up on the docket. Virginia is going to play you tough on the defensive end. They might not be able to. They might not be that dominant threat to score all the time, like when they had Kyle Guy and they had a bunch of those other guys there. DeAndre Hunter was on that team there. They had a bunch of scorers on that team, and now they're, back to we're more defensive oriented, and that's Tony Bennett's Virginia Cavaliers. So the Badgers in this one against Robert Morris, I think it's going to be huge for them to get the offense back on track. Running offense consistently, not playing this one-on-one game. I don't want to see AJ Storr one-on-one all game long. I want to see the Badgers get into some sets, work the swing offense, work the motion offense. I don't care what it is. Set ball screens. Keep moving on the backside, the weak side. It's going to be in this one, I want to see the Badgers play consistent, and that's going to be key to the Badgers here against Robert Morris. Do you have the stats pulled up over there for Robert Morris?
Yeah. I'll just go over a couple of their guys. Justice Williams is leading their team in scoring with averaging 18.5 points a game. He only has 2 games played. They've played a total of 3. They're 1-2 right now. And then Marquise Hastings is averaging 15.3 points per game, and then Stefan Walker with 13.3 points per game. Something I find interesting, one of their guards, Josh Corbin, only has 1 game played for 33 minutes and 5 points. So that could be one of their guys that is injured possibly or something. It looks like he got a lot of minutes played, but barely any points. So something could be going on right there for him. But for the most part, it's Williams, Hastings, Walker are their 3 main scorers. And then after that, it's a bunch of guys that, are getting some minutes, but not really putting anything up in the points department. Hastings is averaging 10.7 rebounds per game. So that'll be quite the matchup to see if rebounding-wise for the Badgers, if they're able to control the boards. When you look at the Badgers, they got a lot of length, and I can't assume some of these guys will be able to keep up with them. But then again, who really knows? Hastings is 6'7", 195. Crowell is what, almost 7? Is he 7 feet tall? I don't even know.
7-footer, yeah.
7-footer. So, let's see. I don't even know if they got they don't even got technically a center listed on their roster. So, it'll be interesting to see how the Badgers utilize their height against a not so very good Robert Morris team. But heck, if we see some scoring droughts going on for the Badgers, it could turn pretty ugly real quick. But honestly, I don't really think that's going to happen here. I think the Badgers will be able to click back and get back to their scoring ways. And hey, they probably won't score 105 points like they did against Arkansas State. But I think they'll still be able to put up decent numbers against this team. Not sure if Connor Season is fully back yet. He'll probably be limited minutes again, but I'll be interested to see how they use John Blackwell. The kid's been playing. He's a freshman. He's been playing really, really good basketball, and I say put him in because the times that he's been in, it seems like they're doing a little bit better than other times. I don't know. I've barely seen some of the games because I've been busy, and then they play on Peacock, and you got to pay for that stupid stuff. And it's like, well, I don't got money for that. So, but anyways, what I've seen from John Blackwell is good stuff, especially being a freshman. So maybe seeing him play a little bit more. And then just like I said before, using our height to our advantage against these guys and just taking it to them. I think it'll be helpful for us to when we get into those games against Virginia that I'm not sure what – is it like the Fort Myers tournament or something? I don't know what it is, but get us into a groove there. And when we go down there, hopefully play some good basketball, get a little momentum going. And then when we play those really hard teams too.
Yeah, and like you were saying there with the size advantage, Wisconsin had the size advantage against Providence. We talked about that. We said in the pregame there for that one that Wisconsin needed to utilize their height advantage. So their tallest guy's coming out with 6'9". That's Tyler Wall. So you had to use the height advantage. This one, Hastings is the big man for Robert Morris, 6'7". 6'7" is the big man for Robert Morris. So in this one, again, they have to take advantage of the height advantage they're going to have in this ball game. I don't care if it's Nolan Winter in there, Carter Gilmore, Tyler Wall, Stephen Crowell. It doesn't matter. One of them guys has got to take advantage of the situation. I think that's going to be a big one. You look at this Robert Morris team here on the season. Actually, teams are shooting 71.3% against them inside the 3-point arc. They're shooting that from 2-point range. Badgers suck from 2-point range right now. Can't hit the bright side of a barn in there. So this could be the turnaround game for them. Actually, teams have just taken 18.9% of their shots from beyond the arc against this Robert Morris team. So most teams are trying to attack them inside, and that's because of the undersized players that they have, Hastings being the big man for them there. So Wisconsin definitely needs to take advantage of the lack of size from this Robert Morris team there. But in this one, also looking at it, this is actually, it's surprising, the first matchup ever between Wisconsin and Robert Morris. I didn't know that, but first time they will ever actually meet. So that's quite interesting to look at there. Looking at this Badger team, though, we talked about the struggles there, and young season, you don't want to completely give up on them yet, but I think a lot of it has come from the coaching staff there with Greg Gard. I think Greg Gard really needs to instill in these guys that this is what we're going to run on offense, and we're going to run it consistently. We're going to do it every time. We're not going to get in this one-on-one stuff. We're not going to do this crap. We're not going to stand at the top of the key. We're going to be constantly moving. I think that's going to be a big thing. Well, that's one of the things I want to see against Robert Morris, like I was talking about earlier there, is just the Badgers put together a good game against this Robert Morris team. I don't care. They should win this game. And just like against Arkansas State, they were supposed to win that game. But if you really break down the Arkansas State game, was there a lot of movement on the offense at times when they were down? Those kind of deals. So moving into that Tennessee game, you look when they were coming back on Tennessee, when they were making things happen, when they were hanging around the first half, a lot of ball movement, a lot of weak side ball movement, a lot of things happening on the offensive end. When things started to go south against Tennessee, it's like they were just morally broken and nobody was moving. Nobody was trying. We were firing up shots. Same against Providence there. So in this one, I just want to see the Badgers put together a complete game of offensive basketball. We know the Badgers can play defense. We know they can. We know Wisconsin can play defense. We have to see it on the offensive end. And if they can play good on the offensive end here, I do like them going up against Virginia in this Fort Myers tip-off there, and then leading up into some of these other big matchups. That makes it a little easier heading into them, because you don't want to face a number 4 Marquette team after coming off losses. You don't want to face number 4 Marquette when your offense is not spinning on all cylinders. You need everything to be going right for you going into that one. And I think this is the stretch where the Badgers need to start putting games together that look good. Coming off 2 losses, this is a good game to get right. And I think, they call it a bye game, basically. They say you're supposed to win this one, so they automatically call it a bye game. This should be a bye game for the Badgers, but I want to see the Badgers improve in this game, and I think that's going to be a big key. I want to see a good game in this one out of Steven Crowl and Tyler Wall. I think those two guys, those will be my key guys in this one. I've seen what AJ Storr can give me. He's averaging 18 a game right now. He had 22. I believe he had like 17, and then I can't remember what he had in the first game there. But he's been scoring. We know he can score. I don't need to see what AJ Storr's got anymore. I need to see it from these other guys. AJ Storr is the newcomer, the new guy walking in the door. We know we've seen John Blackwell now. We know what John Blackwell brings to the table for us. Nolan Winter, we know what he's going to bring to the table. I don't know what these returning 5 that we had from last year, I don't know what they're bringing to me yet. Having Steven Crowl, Tyler Wall, Chucky Hepburn, Max Klesmit doesn't seem like he's growing. And then Connor Season, we don't know if he's healthy or what the heck's going on. So in this one, I want to see improvement out of the other guys, the backdoor guys, the Steven Crowl, the Tyler Wall. I want to see a good game out of Max Klesmit here. I think that's going to be a big thing for the Badgers here, is to get some of those guys right heading into that Fort Myers tip-off against Virginia. So in this one, I expect the Badgers to win. If I had to throw a prediction out there, I would say I would be around like 83 to 65, around that range. I think the Badgers will win this one going away. I still think they're going to allow some points here and there, but I think an undersized matchup here, I think Steven Crowl is going to have a big game for the Badgers.
Yeah, I was thinking the same score. I was going to say 83-54. So when you said 83, I'm like, all right, maybe we're working together here. And then you said 65. Right, I'm like, well, maybe not. But yeah, it's the same range there a little bit. I think the Badgers will be able to utilize that height, and like you said, it'll be interesting to see how these returners kind of come back after a not so good shooting night against Providence, and hopefully shoot the ball better. And yeah, I mean, we know what AJ Storr's got, we know John Blackwell, we know what these new guys got, but I mean, the guys that have been in our program for a little bit now, we got to see something out of them. Hopefully improvement in this so-called cupcake game, but who knows? Maybe it could turn into a ugly cupcake game real quick, knowing the Badgers.
No, exactly. I agree with you there. And speaking of cupcake teams, we're going to jump into Badger football next, but before that, we're going to get to our stat of the day with Austin.
Not so much of a stat, but fact of the day. In 1940, the Green Bay Packers become the first NFL team to travel by plane, by an airplane.
Interesting fact of the day there out of Austin there. I did not know that they were the first team. That is interesting. And also, I have an interesting stat for you. I figured I'd double down. I'd get my own fact of the day here. So,
All right.
November 17th, 2001 is the last time Wisconsin football and basketball were both 500 or worse at the same exact time. So, November 17th. Wow. So that's leading up into this tomorrow game here for the Badgers there against Robert Morris. So it's still going to hold true. It'll actually be to the date that this will hold true. On November 17th, 2001, Michael Jordan was on the Wizards. LeBron James was 16 years old. And Tom Brady only had 7 career starts. That's interesting. That's a long time. That is a long time, and that just tells you where we're at right now with Wisconsin sports. It's taken a little dip. We've had a lot of success, and now we're seeing the backside of it. So,
if I could turn back time. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I got you right there. So, now that we got that out of the way, now you guys know the facts of it. We got to get into this one. Badgers coming off 3 straight losses, 2 terrible ones, mind you. The 2 terrible losses coming against Indiana and Northwestern. I don't count that Ohio State game as a bad loss. You know, we didn't expect them to even be in that game, and they made it a good one. So I don't count that as a bad loss for Wisconsin. So 3 straight losses, 2 terrible ones. So what do we need to see from the Badgers? Well, first off, we need to see the offense finally do something. We need to see the offense put the ball in the end zone. What we've been waiting for a couple weeks now is this Wisconsin offense to finally start clicking on all cylinders. Maybe getting Braylon Allen back. I don't know what the case was last week, 3 carries for 3 yards. Maybe he was still ailing that injury. They were just slowly bringing him back. But if Braylon Allen's healthy, they need him out there in this one. Looking at this game here, though, against Nebraska, it's a night game. It's going to be at 6:30 on NBC. Nebraska coming in this one, not playing great football. I mean, they're Nebraska. They're playing Nebraska football. Wisconsin coming to this one, it's an even matchup. You know, the ESPN predictors put me 70% for Wisconsin, 70% chance Wisconsin wins this game. I think it's more 50-50. I got to be honest with you. I'm 50-50 if Wisconsin wins this game. So what my question marks going into this one are, so we talked about it a little bit there a couple days ago, and Luke Fickell came out and he made a statement about players not buying in. What does that look like? So, you know, I'm really waiting to see if we're going to see starters not playing in this one, if we're going to see guys on the bench, if we're going to see, you know, what are we going to see coming out of the tunnel there against this Nebraska team and in the starting lineups, because I don't know who's buying in. It seems like this coaching staff lost the locker room from what I can hear. So what are the repercussions? What are we going to see in this Nebraska game? I think that's going to be it's going to be a really interesting storyline to look at, is what comes out of it and what do the Badgers look like? Does this Badger team come out under the lights there at Camp Randall? Do they come out flat like we've seen the past couple weeks where it's just been a struggle for the offense right away, can't make anything happen? Or are we going to see the Badgers come out with some fire like they came out with against Ohio State? You know, that fire in that first half where we were like, holy crap, Wisconsin might be able to do this thing. So it's going to be an interesting storyline there to see how the players come out of the locker room there against Nebraska. What Wisconsin team's going to show up? Some fire, some tenacity, a little bit of motivation, or is this Wisconsin team completely just done? I mean, it kind of looks like they're done. It kind of looks like they'd be okay if the season ended today and they could all just spend the rest of the year studying at Madison and then go home. I mean, so it's going to be an interesting storyline there against Nebraska here, but we got to get deep into this one. So let's look at the stats here for this Nebraska-Wisconsin matchup here.
So Nebraska, their starting quarterback Heinrich Harburg, um, 157 attempts, but only 77 completions. It's 49% completion rate, with only 967 yards. So hasn't hit the 1,000 yard mark. 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, 20 sacks on the year. That's quite a bit. But when you go to their rushing, he's also their leading carrier. Their starting quarterback Heinrich. He's their leading carrier with 120 carries and 477 yards and 5 touchdowns. So almost seems like he's their whole offense, just a little bit there. When you go to receiving, their leading receiver Billy Kemp the fourth, only 246 receiving yards on 23 catches, and 1 touchdown. Thomas Fidone the second has 4 touchdowns with 228 yards on 20 receptions. Um, so I mean, look what I said against Northwestern. I looked at their stats and I'm like, wow, these guys. I mean, they spread the ball around a lot, but overall, not very impressive stats. And then they go and then they just completely demolish the Badgers defense, which I've never seen happen before. So, I mean, I want to say these guys are not good and their stats are not very good. But I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm just telling you the stats. I don't even know at this point. I don't know what's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. I mean, hopefully what Hunter Waller said about our team playing soft hit home to a couple guys because let me tell you, Matt Rule is a pretty darn good football coach. I mean, even though Nebraska Cornhuskers are only 5-5, they're still technically second in the Big West or Big Ten West because I mean, there's a lot of teams that are 5-5. When I look at their schedule, um, they lost to Minnesota. It was a pretty close game, their first one. And then they lost to Colorado, but I mean, they beat Illinois, they beat Northwestern and Purdue, but I mean, they've lost 2 pretty close games in Michigan State and Maryland. But I mean, they beat a Northwestern team that the Badgers got completely destroyed by the week prior. So I want to say that the Badgers are going to win, and like you said, the prediction's Badgers by 70%. But I completely agree with you when you say it's about 50-50. I have no idea. It depends what kind of Badgers team walks out of the tunnel on that day. I mean, with Tanner Mordecai back, Braylon Allen back, DK back, you think we would be able to just play Badger football like we have been the past couple of years and beat Nebraska pretty handily. But quite frankly, that's just not the case, I don't think, this year. And I mean, we're fighting for a bowl game. So, I mean, if the Badgers even want to play in a bowl game this year, which, I mean, it's up to them, I guess. But overall, like you said, 50-50 game. I mean, I want to say that the Nebraska Cornhuskers isn't good looking at their stats, but like Northwestern didn't have good stats, and we were wrong there. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's about all I got
100%.
for you.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, bowl eligibility is on the line here. Both teams 1 win away from being bowl eligible. If Wisconsin doesn't win this game, that Minnesota game gets a lot scarier for this Badger team. I think, like you said, the big player to watch in this one, Hunter Wohler. I am interested to see how he comes out in this game after his comments were made. What kind of Hunter Wohler are we going to see on the field there? Because I think it could be exciting to watch, but I could also see a lot of, interesting, like I was talking about storylines before, interesting storylines coming out of this game here to see players maybe in other players' faces here, trying to get them fired up, trying to get this kick started. Stuff like that going on is going to be interesting. Like you were saying there with Wisconsin's run game, the Badgers against this Nebraska defense here, Nebraska defense has actually allowed 79.6 yards rushing per game. It's 2.69 yards per carry. So Nebraska's rush defense is playing pretty darn well for them in this season here. And the Badgers they need the run game to really get this offense going. So it's going to be an interesting matchup there for them. Looking at this game, though, the Badgers have lost. I didn't even realize this stat. They have lost 3 straight home games for the first time since 2002, and they're actually trying to avoid dropping 4 consecutive home games for the first time since 1990. That's an interesting storyline to keep up with there, too, is that the Badgers are, setting new records for new lows is the bad part about this whole thing here. But we got to see I mean, it's a bounce back game for the Badgers. And in this one, we got to see some good play. And I think it's going to come a lot from what can Tanner Mordecai bring to the table here for the Badgers, and what can Braylon Allen do for the Badgers through the run game. I think the run game is going to be key to this one. If they can flip over that Nebraska defense and really make them work in this one, I think that's going to be a huge help for the pass game there for Tanner Mordecai, and allow, this offense to really open up the playbook and be able to make things happen. What worries me going to this one is, talking about it earlier there with what Luke Fickell said, is the locker room behind him. So is this team going to come out flat? What are we going to see from this Badger team against this Nebraska Cornhusker team? I think it's going to be closer than what we want to see. And if I had to throw a prediction out there for this ball game, I'm going to be in there at 17-14. 17-14, Badgers win this game. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think they do pull off this game at Camp Randall under the lights. Should be a good atmosphere for this one. I mean, the fans shouldn't have completely given up. So it's going to be it should be a good game. I think it's going to be a good Big Ten West showdown between Nebraska and Wisconsin. It shouldn't be, but I think it will be, and I think the Badgers will pull this one out.
I won't be surprised if this score looks a lot like an Iowa game. Very low scoring. Like you said, Nebraska has a pretty good defense, pretty good rush defense, and that's something that the Badgers hasn't even been able to establish against some pretty mid teams. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see that, like you said. But as a score prediction, I might say 2017, that 17-14 range right with you. I think it's going to be close. Could be a shootout in the low scoring ranges for sure. And it could be, for all I know, it could be a pretty boring game too to watch. So hopefully the Badgers get the win here. That would be exciting. But I mean, this Nebraska team, even though they look mid on paper, they're going to come out because they're fighting for something just as much as we are.
100%. It's going to be an interesting matchup there for the Badgers. Like I said, though, Badgers, Nebraska on NBC, 6:30 on Saturday night there. So catch the game. See what you see out of this Badger team. And we are, because we're going to recap it there on Monday for you guys. But with that, we're going to jump over into the Packers, because the Packers coming up on Sunday will be taking on the Chargers. And in this one, Packers looking to bounce back there after a tough loss there to the Steelers. Had many opportunities in that ball game to take that one against the Steelers. Would have set up back-to-back wins, maybe a third win here against the Chargers. But this is a bounce-back game. Like we've talked about, we just want to see improvement out of this Packers team week in and week out. And we thought, we did see a little bit there against the Steelers. So hopefully in this one, we're going to see a little bit more. Jumping into this one, though, let's get into the stats right away and look at what we're seeing from the Chargers, there, and then go from there.
Yeah. So a lot of people know their quarterback, Justin Herbert. Even if you're from Wisconsin, you probably know this guy.
You do, because he played for Oregon.
He played against us and beat us in the Rose Bowl. So
you're dang right he did. We know who he is.
He has 2,349 passing yards on 322 attempts, 216 completions, so 67.1 completion rate right there for you. 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 20 sacks. And then when you get into the rushing, Joshua Kelly is leading them, but Austin Eckler did miss a few of those games in there with an injury, so I'm pretty sure he will probably be their main back to go to. Eckler only has 332 yards on 92 carries. Still has more carries than Joshua Kelly, but he also missed some of those games. 4 touchdowns for Eckler, and then Justin Herbert also has 3 touchdowns rushing too, but only 113 yards, 36 carries. So mainly probably a red zone threat when it comes to rushing for Justin Herbert. Then when it comes to receiving, Keenan Allen leading the charge for the receiving core. He has 895 yards on 73 receptions, 6 touchdowns. And then Donald Parham Jr., one of their tight ends, he has 4 touchdowns on only 122 yards and 15 receptions, but he's one of their main guys to go to, it seems like, when they're in the red zone also. And then for their defense, Kenneth Murray Jr. and Derwin James leading them with tackles. Kenneth Murray has 65 total tackles, Derwin James 60 tackles. So I mean, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I think this Los Angeles team's a pretty good team. They played the Lions pretty tough. Lions beat them 41-38 in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure last week, and I mean, you saw what the Lions did to the Packers. It's gonna be a challenge for the Packers. They got a pretty good offense, and their defense. I mean, they gave up 41 to the Lions, so maybe it's not the greatest, but they still got some playmakers. I mean, Khalil Mack, you see, he's one of the players on their team. Eric Kendricks, we saw him quite a bit. He was a linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings. He played pretty good. So I mean, this team, this Los Angeles team, is pretty good. I mean, they're only 4-5 and third in the AFC West. But when you take a look at their schedule, one of those losses was to Miami, and we know what Miami is doing. Dallas and Kansas City, and then Detroit. So I mean, four out of their 5 losses are, I mean, against very good opponents. So when you look at Green Bay, I'll take a look at Green Bay's stats right now with as well. Jordan Love, 2,000 yards passing, 300 attempts, 176 completions, so 58.7 completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 19 sacks. I mean, it seems like Jordan Love's been almost averaging a sack, or not a sack. I mean, obviously he's averaging an interception per game, which isn't ideal for him there. It'll be interesting to see how he does. Hopefully, he plays a cleaner game against these guys. Rushing, AJ Dillon's still leading them, but Aaron Jones, obviously, we all know he had that those 3 games out with a quad injury or hamstring injury. So hopefully, I think Aaron Jones, he played better last week against the Steelers. Seemed like they were, as an offense collectively, they were able to do a little bit better overall. But hopefully Aaron Jones still gets a lot of those carries for the Packers. And then looking at receiving, Jaden Reed's leading us as a rookie, 417 yards with 4 touchdowns. And then Romeo Doubs, 343 yards receiving on 6 touchdowns. And then, I mean, Christian Watson has not been – like we talked about this. Christian Watson has not been the same Christian Watson that he was last year. He did miss a couple games. He missed 3 games there as well with an injury, but 236 yards on 1 touchdown. It seems like Jordan Love is just a little bit more comfortable with Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs. But then also you look at it and he does make some pretty bad throws when throwing Christian Watson's way. So who knows what their situation is. But, I mean, I'll give you my score. I'll give you my prediction right now. It might be tough as a Packer fan, but I don't think we're going to win this one, sadly. Just to be upfront with you there. I don't know. I mean, I could be the worst Packer fan in the world right now, but just looking at the way that the Packers have been playing, and then you look at our defense, it's going to be a tough game. And I mean, the Packers struggle against the Steelers, and I think the Chargers are a little bit better than the Steelers. So I don't think. I mean, it'll be good to see if they improve, but I don't know if they're going to pull out the win. Especially. It is a home game for the Packers, so that is at least good. But maybe they have a little bit of home field advantage and they'll pull out the win. I don't know.
Home field advantage and series record advantage. They actually are 10-2 against the Chargers all time. So that is on their side too. They have a little bit of that going on for them there. Like you were talking, though, Jordan Love averaging about an interception per game there. Not a good stat, but you can't blame him on the offensive line. I did see a stat. The offensive line is actually ranked 3rd in the league on pass plays for, giving Love time in the pocket and everything like that. Everybody tries to blame the offensive line. Love doesn't have time. The offensive line, according to the stats, and everybody loves to look at stats, the offensive line is playing A-OK in the pass game right now. So it's a little bit on Jordan Love there, forcing balls in. You talked about Christian Watson there a little bit. It seems like when Love goes to Watson too, he's rushing it. He's underthrowing him. He's not putting it on. The throws aren't good to Christian Watson. Yes, some of them Christian Watson should go up for and try to win the 50-50 ball. I will say that. I can't defend Christian Watson completely, but I think it's a fault on both sides there. I think there are some times where Watson shouldn't have to fight for it. If Love leads him over the top, it's an easy touchdown. But instead, Watson's got to turn around and try to catch that ball from the defender. So it's a horse apiece, whatever way you want to look at it there with the Christian Watson, Jordan Love experience right now. This Chargers offense, like you said, overall ranked 11th in the league right now. Their defense is what struggles for the Chargers. They're ranked 31st in the league right now. Their pass defense is terrible. So if the Packers are going to take advantage of anything in this one, it's going to be through the air. Their rush defense is sitting at 12th in the league. The pass defense is sitting at 32. So their pass defense, the Packers got to take advantage in the pass game. Like you were talking, Jaden Reed is going to be an interesting matchup for that secondary. I think you're still going to have to see good games out of Dobbs. I think Wicks is going to have to develop into something pretty. I think he is developing into something pretty good. I just think they got to utilize him, and we want to see Christian Watson do something in this ball game here. But Love is going to have to play a good game. That's plain and simple what it is. Love is going to have to improve. You look at the Packers offense, ranked 21st in the league there. They're ranked 21st in rush and 19th in passing right now, 21st in the league in scoring. Looking at the Packers defense, 11th in the league right now. So a complete flip the script there. Pretty good offense up against a pretty good defense here. The rush defense for the Packers, terrible. 27th in the league. What keeps them up there at number 11 in the league overall? The pass defense. They're ranked 7th in the league in pass defense. So pretty good pass defense going up against a pretty good pass offense. I do think the secondary will be tested in this one. You look at the last couple matchups there the secondaries had. They've had to face quarterbacks like, Brett Rippon and Kenny Pickett. I mean, not real great quarterbacks. You've gone up against Justin Fields. You've had your matchups there with Jimmy G. And then when Jimmy got hurt in that game, I'm pretty sure, didn't he?
Russell Wilson, too. Yeah, Jimmy G got hurt. And then, Derek Carr got hurt.
Derek Carr got hurt, and you ended up facing Jameis Winston then. So you haven't played great quarterbacks yet. You played Jared Goff. Goff's having a pretty good season, so you have played decent quarterbacks. That game, the Lions torched us on the ground, though, so that was the big
Kirk Cousins has been pretty good until he got hurt, so.
Kirk Cousins has been pretty good. So, but my point is that you haven't faced a lot of great quarterbacks, and the secondaries look great. I think this is going to be a test because Justin Herbert is going to test them through the air. So it's going to be an interesting matchup there. Keenan Allen, like you were talking, he does have a shoulder issue, but he's expected to play in this one. Looking at the Packers injury report as of yesterday, everybody was at practice besides Rudy Ford. He did not practice. Otherwise, Jair was back. He was limited, but he was back. Kenny Clark limited. Elton Jenkins, Aaron Jones, Quay Walker, and Christian Watson all limited at practice. And Josh Nijman was full practice, and so was John Runyon. So getting kind of healthy there for the Packers. Good news there. On the flip side there for the Chargers, like I said, Keenan Allen was limited on Thursday. Besides that, not much else there to report. Gerald Everett, it did not practice, tight end. He did not practice. Joey Bosa is back for him. He was full go on Wednesday and Thursday. So Joey Bosa will be back out there. So Packers will have their hands full in with this one. It's going to be a definite bounce back game for them after a tough loss there against the Steelers. And going into a short week, you hope that Lions game isn't looming over top of this one. You can focus on the Chargers first, then we focus on the Lions. Kind of put that one on the back burner. I want to see some good play out of Jordan Love here and the receivers for the Packers, especially going up against a subpar Chargers defense in this one. So, like you said, it's going to be a tough game. And if Packers pull this one out, it's going to be a tight game. And I think it'll be low scoring. It sucks to say, it's going to be a tough one for the Packers. I don't know if they pull it out, but like we've been talking, we just want to see this team improve week by week and just see something good to talk about. And they did that against the Steelers. So hopefully improvement continues, because if the improvement continues, these games get a little bit easier for the Packers down the stretch there. When you see the Vikings one more time, that game gets a little bit easier for this Packers team. So hopefully see some improvement there. Packers will take on the Chargers there on Sunday from Lambeau Field. That game will be on Fox, so should be a good game there. But with that, we got to jump over into the NFL. We're going to jump over into the schedule there for this upcoming weekend. We're going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to take the Browns defense to win that game. I don't think it'll be an offensive game. I think the Browns defense will win that ball game.
Browns are without Deshaun Watson, so that'll be interesting, but their defense is pretty good, so I'll take them against Pittsburgh.
All right. And then next up, we have the Lions and the Bears. I'm going to take the Lions to win that game.
Lions. That one's a pretty easy one.
We already covered the Packers and Chargers, so we're going to jump down into the Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders. In Miami, I'm taking the Dolphins.
I'll take the Dolphins, but the Raiders are playing some pretty decent football right now.
Raiders keep it close. Next up, we have the Giants taking on the Commanders. I am going to take the Commanders to win that game. The Giants are just a mess.
Yep, I'm going to take Commanders too.
All right. And then we have the Cowboys going on the road to take on Carolina. I don't care that it's not at home for the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys.
Cowboys are a good football team this year. I ain't going to lie. I'm going to take them.
Cowboys with the win there. Next up, we have Jacksonville taking on Tennessee. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence in this one there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I like Jacksonville too.
Houston going up against Arizona. Kyler Murray did look a little bit better for that Arizona Cardinal team last week, but something with Houston not having all the star power yet, still pulling off games. They're an interesting team right now. I'm going to go with the Texans to pull off the win against Arizona.
I like CJ Stroud and how he's playing football right now, so I think Texans are going to win this one.
Texans with the win there. Next up, the 3:05 game, we're going to have the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Should be a good matchup there. I'm going to take the 49ers to win that ball game.
Yeah, we saw how the addition of Chase Young and Nick Bosa on both ends, they're pretty dominant. I'm going to go with the 49ers also.
Next up, I got my upset of the week. The Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take the Jets. I think the Bills are on upset watch this week. I think the Bills are reeling. I don't think they have it figured out. I think Josh Allen is struggling, and this Jets defense is pretty darn good. So I'm going to take the Jets to win this game on the road.
That would be a good upset pick, but I'm gonna stick with the Bills. I think they'll bounce back after their tough loss last week.
Okay. Next up, we have the Seahawks taking on the Rams there at SoFi. I'm going to take the Seahawks there on the road.
Yeah, I mean, even the Packers beat the Rams, so I feel like I got to go Seahawks on this one.
Pretty darn much. If the Packers beat anybody, we just take the opposite. So next up, we have the Vikings taking on the Broncos. Broncos been making it happen. They've been making it happen as of late. Defense is looking a little bit better. Russell Wilson just doing enough to keep the Broncos afloat. I'm going to take the Vikings. I like what Dobbs is doing with the Vikings right now, and I think the Vikings keep the roll on here.
I like what Josh Dobbs is doing too. Underrated player for sure, journeyman, and now it seems like he's finally found his place to shine, so I'm going to go with the Vikings.
He's the new Ryan Fitzpatrick of the league. He's going to bounce around for a while. And
I hate the Vikings, but I love Josh Dobbs.
You're dang right. And the big matchup of the week on Monday night, we're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I did see Taylor Swift's mom and dad will be in attendance. They will be showing up. So they're going to meet Mama Kelsey. They're going to meet everyone in the family there. They're going to see Jason Kelsey take on Travis Kelsey. I got the Kansas City Chiefs there at Arrowhead taking this game.
I'm going the Eagles just because I like Jason Kelsey more than Travis Kelsey because he's no lineman.
There we go. So that should be an interesting matchup there on Monday night, the big game of the week there. Next up, we're going to jump over into college football. We're going to check out the slate for this upcoming weekend here. And it looks like to start out the day, we're going to have Michigan, probably without Jim Harbaugh yet. They're going to be taking on Maryland there an 11 o'clock start. I got Michigan in that ball game.
Yeah, I got Michigan too. They're just dominant.
Next up in the mid-season, we're going to we like to call it bye games now. Alabama is going to be taking on Chattanooga. I'm going to take Alabama.
Yeah, no chance for Chattanooga.
No, there is not. Next up, 11 o'clock, we got number 10 Louisville taking on Miami. This is an interesting matchup, and Louisville's kind of playing themselves back up potentially into a New Year's Six bowl, but also, crazier things have happened in the college football playoff. They win the ACC championship game. The Big 12 champion's going to have a loss too coming out of there. So it could get interesting to see who gets into the college football playoff. Louisville could be right on the doorstep there. I'm going to take Louisville in this game against Miami.
Yeah, Miami, their record doesn't look good, but it's University of Miami. You got to expect they're going to make some type of plays. I'm going to go with Louisville also, though.
Next up, 11 o'clock, we're going to have Penn State, number 12 Penn State, taking on Rutgers. Rutgers with an I'm going to call it embarrassing because they played Iowa and they gave up 22 points to Iowa and didn't score against Iowa. At least Wisconsin scored. I'm going to take Penn State to win that game against Rutgers.
If you're going to give up 22 points to Iowa, imagine what you're going to give up to the number 12 ranked team in the nation. So I got to go Penn State.
Penn State winning that one. Next up, we got Ole Miss coming off in a pretty brutal loss to Georgia. They're going to be taking on UL Monroe. I'm going to take Ole Miss to bounce back.
Another SEC cupcake game here. I'm going to take Ole Miss as well.
Next up, we have number 14 Oklahoma taking on BYU. I think this game's close, being as it's in Utah for this one, but I'm going to take Oklahoma to win this game.
Oklahoma coming off of a win. I think they're going to keep that winning ways there. I'm going to go Oklahoma.
Next up, we got the Green Wave, the Tulane Green Wave, the Mean Green Wave, whatever you want to call them there. They're taking on Florida Atlantic. If this was basketball, we'd take Florida Atlantic, but it is college football, so we are taking Tulane to win that matchup.
Yep, I'm going with the Green Wave.
Next up, Pac-12 Network. We're going to have a 1:30 start there. Number 17, Arizona, taking on number 22, Utah. I'm going to take Arizona. I've been impressed with Arizona this season here. They have good quarterback play there, good rushing game. I think Arizona takes this one against Utah.
Okay, first off, people wonder why the Pac-12 is becoming a non-existent conference. It's because you put number 22 Utah versus number 17 Arizona on Pac-12 Network. No one's going to watch that game for once. But I'm going to go Utah over Arizona. I think this might be the game that Arizona, they've been the not-so-good team these past years. Guess what? Well, now they're going to get upsetted against Utah.
There we go. Next up, 2:30, Georgia has another top 25 matchup. They're going to be taking on Tennessee, number 18 Tennessee, going to Knoxville there, Georgia is. I'm going to take Georgia in that one. I liked what I saw against Ole Miss. I think they keep it rolling here against Tennessee.
Yeah, I like Georgia. They've been playing you look at Missouri, they beat them. Now they beat Ole Miss in a game that people probably thought was going to be pretty close, but they ended up blowing them out. I think they're going to beat Tennessee pretty handily here.
Heck yeah. Next up, we have Iowa, number 16 Iowa. That's just something to see. Taking on Illinois. I'm putting Iowa on upset alert again. I'm taking Illinois to win this game on the road. I think Altmaier is going to run all over them.
I'm going to go Iowa in a score of 3-0.
Bold take. That's a bold take right there. Iowa in a 3-0 burner. We're going to go next up, Notre Dame, number 19 Notre Dame, taking on Wake Forest. I think Notre Dame pulls this one off against Wake Forest.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame is going to beat Wake Forest. Sam Hartman playing his old team. I think they're going to beat him.
Should be a good matchup there. Next up at 2:30 on ESPN, we're going to have Clemson taking on number 20 North Carolina. I think Dabo Swinney's finally got Clemson going in the right direction, and I'm going to take Clemson to put North Carolina out of the top 25 after this week. I got North Carolina on upset alert.
I was going to take Clemson as well. They've been playing, their record doesn't show, but these past few weeks they've been playing some pretty good football. So I'm going to take them in this one.
Next up, we're going to have a real barn burner. We're going to take number 2 Ohio State taking on Minnesota there on the Big Ten Network at 3 o'clock. I'm going to take Ohio State in that ballgame.
Yeah. I don't think Minnesota really has a chance. Maybe if it was in Minnesota, they'd have like a 2% chance. But since it's in Ohio, they have like a 0.2% chance. So I'm going to go Ohio State.
I wonder what the actual predictor is telling me right now. 97.1% chance Ohio State wins this
Hey,
game against Minnesota. So they're giving them a 2.9.
2.9? Wow.
There's a chance. It's like playing the lottery. There's always a chance.
There's
Next
always-
up, we have number 6, Oregon taking on Arizona State. Oregon's going to win this game.
Yeah, Arizona State not doing too hot, but Oregon's playing some pretty good football there. So I'm going to take Oregon.
Next up, 3 o'clock on ESPN2, number 23, Oklahoma State's taking on Houston. In Houston, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a close game. Houston has been playing decent this season. They got some good quarterback play there out of Smith. I'm going to take Oklahoma State, but I don't think it's a blowout.
Oklahoma State did just lose in a blowout fashion to UCF, but I think they will be able to come back against Houston and win this one here.
Next up, we have another one of those bye games, 5:30 on the CW network. Florida State, number 4, Florida State, taking on North Alabama. I'm glad these teams get paid a lot to go to these games because Florida State's going to mop them. I got Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State by a lot.
Next up, 6 o'clock on FS1, we're going to have Kansas taking on Kansas State, a little in-state rivalry there. I'm going to take Kansas to win that game.
I'm also going to take Kansas. I like their coach. Even though he's from our rival school, Whitewater, he's doing some pretty good things at Kansas. Kansas have lost a couple games, but I think they'll be able to bounce back against Kansas State.
Next up, a pretty big matchup there, top 15 matchup at 6:30 on ABC. We're going to have number 5 Washington taking on number 11 Oregon State. They're in from Oregon. It's going to be a good game, but I think Washington's going to win that one. Michael Penix Jr. is just too much for this Oregon State defense.
I think Washington's going to win this game, and then I think they're also going to raise some eyebrows and possibly jump in front of Florida State. I mean, being Oregon State, that's a good resume booster for them. It could jump them in front of Florida State in the college football playoff rankings.
Will definitely be interesting to see what the rankings look like after this week here. Moving on, 6:30 on ESPN, we're going to have Florida taking on Missouri. I'm going to take number 9 Missouri, beating Florida there.
I like Missouri as well.
Next up, 7 p.m. on Fox, we're going to have number 7 Texas taking on Iowa State. I'm going to take Texas.
Yep, give me Texas. These last few games are pretty explanatory, it seems.
7 o'clock, we're going to have LSU taking on Georgia State. I'm going to take LSU. I think LSU will somehow survive.
Yep, LSU over Georgia State.
There we go. So that is the college football weekend there. We have covered just about everything we had for today here. We talked a little Wisconsin sports, got into the national side of it here. Looking to see the Badgers football pick up a win here over the weekend there against Nebraska. Packers, hope to see some improvement out of them. Badger basketball, we expect a win tonight. Bucks looking to go 2-0 in the in-season tournament. Should be interesting games all weekend long for Wisconsin fans and just sports fans in general. But with that, we will catch you guys back here on Monday. But until then, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you later. Deuces.